Hello and welcome. Let's see how to install the server edition of Ubuntu on a Dell laptop. The first thing we need is downloading the ISO installation file from ubuntu.com/download/server. There are three options for the download, and we are going to use the third one, which is downloading the ISO file. Once you download the file, head over to rufus.ie and download Rufus. Then run Rufus. Plug in a USB flash drive and make sure Rufus identifies it correctly. Select the ISO file for the server installation, then hit Start. Once the USB flash drive is ready, we need to make room on our SSD. Open the Disk Management tool. We can see the SSD and the USB flash drive. Right-click on the biggest partition, that is the C drive, and select Shrink Volume. Select how much disk space you want Linux to use. I'm going to allocate about 300 GB. Restart the computer. Once the Dell logo appears, quickly tap F12 to open the boot menu. Let's try selecting the USB flash drive from the menu. The installation program loads, but actually it's not going to work, and I'm going to explain why. Let's go to the Help option and enter the shell. Let's run the ls-block command. In the top of the results, there are several loop entries that are not that relevant for the installation. But after them, we see SDA. SDA is the installation USB flash drive, and it only has one partition. The meaning is that the SSD is not visible to Linux, so the installation will not succeed. Let's restart the computer and tap F12 again to enter the boot menu. The flash drive disappeared from the bootable devices, so I'm going to unplug it, then plug it again, then restart the computer. And let's enter the BIOS setup. Under System Configuration, in SATA Operations, we need to choose AHCI. That's the mode Linux needs to properly use the SSD. Under Secure Boot, make sure the Secure Boot Enable is unchecked. Then apply and exit. Now we can select the USB flash drive. Let's enter the shell again. Let's run ls-block. This time, in addition to SDA, we can see NVMe, which is the computer's SSD. Let's run fdisk on the SSD. Don't forget the /dev as part of the drive's name. As you probably remember, on Windows, we freed up some space. Now we're going to create two new partitions to use this space. Let's type in n to create a new partition. We need to give a number to the partition. I'm going to use the default, so I just hit enter. I'm also going with the default for the first block, since the free space is auto-detected. And I'm going to allocate 2 GB for this partition because it will be used for swap. Let's create another partition for Linux itself. Here, I don't specify the size explicitly, because I want all of the available space to be allocated. Let's type in W to write the changes. If we run ls-block again, we can see partition 6 and partition 7, the two new partitions we created. Let's type exit to get back to the installer. Select your language. I have an Ethernet cable plugged in, so the computer got an IP address from the router and connected to the internet. Now we're going to select Custom Storage Layout. And here we can see all of our partitions. Let's select partition 7, which is the big one, and edit it. As a format, I'm going to choose ext4 and as mount point /. Then choose Done. Enter your name, your server's name, your username, and your password. You can install SSH server, which is probably a good idea for a server. Then we're given the option to choose additional tools from a list of popular ones. Now we need to wait for the installation to finish. Once the installation is done, we restart the computer again. The Ubuntu server will work fine, but the problem now is that Windows will not load. So let's fix it. Let's enter BIOS setup again. The first problem is that Windows was removed from the boot options. Let's add a boot option to re-enable it. Let's select a file. From the file system, we need to choose the one that has EFI folder. In my case, is the second one. From the EFI folder, select Microsoft, then Boot, then Boot Manager FW. Give it a name and click on OK. Under System Configuration, under SATA Operation, let's return to RAID on. You might be wondering why. Because once again, when this option is selected, the Ubuntu server will not load. The thing is that we need to install some new drivers on Windows to enable it to work on AHCI mode. But if we're already in AHCI, it will not load in the first place. So we need to get back temporarily to RAID on, load Windows, set up the drivers, and then we can get back to AHCI. Click Apply and Exit. From the boot menu, select Windows. Well, my Windows failed to load. It happens sometimes, I don't really know why, but what I do in these situations is just enter the BIOS setup again and repeat the very same things we did before with a boot sequence. Once Windows loads, we're ready to enable Safe Boot. In System Configuration, under Boot, select Safe Boot. The reason we need Safe Boot is that we're not going to manually install the drivers for AHCI. We'll just let Windows take care of it. But Windows needs to be in Safe Boot to install them automatically. In SATA Operation, let's return to AHCI. Since Windows is in safe mode, it will load fine. Let's let Windows load. And once it loads, the AHCI drivers are already installed, and we can disable Safe Boot. To do that, open System Configuration again, and in the General tab, choose Normal Startup. When we enter the boot menu again, we can see Windows twice. One entry is the one we entered manually. The other one is Windows default option that disappeared before, but once Windows loaded, it reappeared. Let's enter the BIOS options again and remove the option we added manually. Now that we've taken care of Windows, we can start our Ubuntu server. Once it loads, we can log in, and it's up and running, ready for use. Thanks for watching, and if you find this type of content useful, please consider subscribing.